I just spent, oh my god, $323 on VTTs to figure out which is the best one. But it was worth it because I found a combination that is perfect for my group. Some of these are paid, some of them are free, and I'm gonna bet some of them you've never heard of. But you probably have heard of the sponsor of this video. Thank you so much to Describe. Describe creates inspiring description text, detailed interactive maps, and now music and sound effects which are fully integrated with one of the VTTs. More on that later. Welcome to the table. I'm Kelly, and for this video, we need to go inside the internet. Oh, weird. Looks exactly the same. First up is a VTT that I hadn't heard of, but it has the best grid alignment tool of any VTT that I've ever used. Seriously, every VTT maker needs to see this. This is the new standard. Bag of Mapping is a relative newcomer, developed by a very small team, but they're moving quickly and seem to be adding and improving features all the time. Now, check out this grid alignment tool. Wait, it worked! I'm in the VTT! Oh, I can't believe that worked. Can you put a map in here? It's dark. A little scary. Feel good though. Right. So Bag of Mapping does everything through external URLs and doesn't actually host any images on their own servers, even in the paid tier, but I'll explain that more in a minute. Depending on where you get your maps from, this could either be really easy and fast or kind of a pain. If you normally get maps from subreddits, DeviantArt, or publicly accessible Patreon posts, then this is great for you. Just copy the link, paste it in, and you're good to go. If you've purchased or downloaded maps, then you'll need to upload them somewhere and link to them, which is an extra step. Alright, just have to align the grid. Align one corner, align the other, then pick the best aligned token, and you're done. Even on a huge map like this, it's really accurate all the way across. Okay, now let's give you some stats to really test you out. They're gonna be 20s, right? I'm gonna have a lot of HP though, right? Bag of Mapping supports 5e, Pathfinder, Blades in the Dark, and then generic mode where you can track stats or create basic actions for most TTRPGs. The process for creating characters and monsters isn't as easy as some of the other VTTs, which you'll see later, but it's not bad. Instead of form fields, I wish it just automatically recognized to hit and damage stats from a line of text like Improved Initiative. I'd also love to see it come included with the SRD monsters for the supported systems. Overall, the UI felt really intuitive and easy, and they have lots of text prompts that are helpful. One thing that is interesting and that I haven't seen before is that Bag of Mapping has permanent URLs for each encounter, so you can create an encounter, set up a map, create tokens, and even do part of the combat. When you want to pause, just bookmark the URL. Next time you open it up, everything should be right where you left it, even if you don't have an account. The free tier is really good, and there aren't any limitations on number of maps or encounters you can make. The paid tier is $2 per month. With the paid tier, you get access to a page that shows you the encounters you've made, and they get saved to your account so you don't have to bother with bookmarking anything. You're also able to link an external image hosting service to your account so that you can drag and drop maps right from the setup screen. This one's a little clunky because you have to go and create an account on another site and then get an API key and then link it to your account. I understand that this is probably temporary and it was done like this because it was easier to implement, but I hope they integrate with something like Amazon S3 soon so you can upload maps directly through their site. This would make the paid tier way more attractive and likely wouldn't add much cost for them. Scrolling through the subreddit, you can see that people experience glitches here and there, but you can also see that the devs are really active and quick to respond, and also really interested in hearing from the community about which features they'd like to see next. Players can also subscribe for $2 a month to be able to save a token and their stats to their account and drop them into any map. There's also a Chrome extension that's coming soon, which will import and sync your character sheet from D&D Beyond. I think you should subscribe to this VTT, but not necessarily to get the paid features, because the free features are already really good. I would subscribe, and I did, to support the development and see what else this team can come up with. Because if they can make something as good as their grid alignment tool, then I have faith that they are going to come up with some really great features. Okay, before we do this, I just want to remind you that you don't have to fight every monster you see. Running or stealthing past is an option. Just because they exist in the world doesn't mean you have to fight them. I never run from a fight. What? I think this is going really well. Okay, well, I guess I'll need a new token for the next VTT. But first, how does this VTT score? I've come up with a rubric and I'm going to score each VTT on it. Hopefully this will help you decide which ones you want to try based on what's important to you. The full rankings are available as a free post over on my Patreon, which is linked down in the description. A 3 is good, 2 is okay, 1 is not so good, and 0 is either bad or doesn't exist. Cost for this one is a 3. Almost no paywalled features, and the subscription is the lowest of any VTTs I looked at. TTRPG support is a 2 because it supports more than D&D and it offers generic trackers and actions, but it doesn't come with any preloaded monsters and there's no option to get more besides manually creating them yourself. Ease of use and setup is a 3. No one actually has to sign in, you can just throw down a map and some tokens and get going. Everything is really clearly laid out and I found it very easy to use. Asset availability is a 2 because it doesn't come with many assets, but 2D assets are easy to find. Most of the 2D map makers will get this score. Automation features is a 1. It's nice to have more than just basic HP trackers, but having to manually fill in fields to create actions is very time consuming. And there's no option to purchase pre-mapped monsters like some of the other VTTs. And the last category is very subjective, so you can disregard this category if you want. It's wow factor. Wow. It's a score based on if I think my players will be wowed by the VTT. Playing online is not as good as playing in person, so any tools that I can use to bring back some of that magic and make them go, wow, that's cool, is worth considering for me. Although it's awesome and easy to use, and the grid alignment wowed me, that doesn't affect my players. So, who should use this? If you're playing a system that isn't 5e, or if you're playing 5e but you don't use D&D Beyond, then you should absolutely use this VTT. I'm really excited to see what they're going to develop. If you do use D&D Beyond, then you should probably just use this next one. I almost don't even want to talk about it because I'm afraid that Wizards of the Coast is just going to shut it down to kill competition for their own VTT, but let's just hope they take the high road and actually develop a VTT that's worth switching to instead of forcing it on people. That's a topic for a different video. This completely free VTT is a Chrome extension that loads on top of D&D Beyond and fully integrates with all the freely available content on D&D Beyond, your purchased content, as well as your players' character sheets. This thing has so many features and it's so effortless to use because all of the monster stats and character stats are all automatically integrated and rollable right from within the VTT. To use above VTT, you need to install the Chrome extension, head to your campaign on D&D Beyond, then click Join as DM or Player. You can use maps from any book or module that's free or that you've purchased on D&D Beyond, link to any map URL, upload a universal VTT file for pre-configured walls and lighting, a file from Dropbox, a file from OneDrive, or one of the coolest options, a free map uploaded by the community. There are so many free maps here from sources like Neutral Party, Chepeku, Dice Grimorium, and a new section that has animated maps from YouTube. The grid tool is the standard draw a 3x3 square, and it works alright, but it's not as accurate across the entire map as the bag of mapping one. I know, that's the last time I'll reference it. It's just so good. To add tokens, you just head to the tokens icon. There you'll see all of your players from that campaign, any SRD monsters, and any monsters that you've purchased on D&D Beyond. You can also create tokens and stat blocks super easily by just copying and pasting a stat block from anywhere. You can then do some quick formatting for readability and easily map the HP, AC, and initiative. Then above VTT does the rest by assuming number with a plus or minus next to it is a modified d20 roll, and any number, D, number, plus number is a damage roll. These become clickable automatically, and it will roll D&D Beyond's dice if you click on them.
Okay, for dynamic lighting, I'll need a token.
Pick me. No, I'll be better. What are you wearing? Fantasy shirt number 3. What are you wearing? You can either upload a universal VTT file with pre-made walls, or you can easily draw them in using the wall tool. Once you have the walls set up, token lights and vision should be on by default. Walls and locked doors will also automatically restrict movement for your players. Hey, what's in there? Nothing, it's just a locked door. Well, I cast knock on it. Okay, now it's an unlocked door. I open the door. What's in there? Make me a perception check. 19. It's just an empty storeroom. No, there's definitely something in here. And I'm gonna find it. I'm telling you right now, it's just an empty storeroom in a random house, but I'll leave you to it. There are lots more features, including integrated voice and video chat, but you should just go check it out yourself because it's all completely free. If you want to support the development, you can contribute on Patreon. There are links when you launch the VTT. Above VTT definitely gets a 3 for cost. It gets a 1 for TTRPG support because it only supports 5e. I gave it a 3 for ease of setup and use because although you do have to install something to use it, if you're already using D&D Beyond, then that's all you have to do. Everything else is automatically integrated. Asset availability is a 3 because of all the maps it comes loaded with, as well as all the tokens that are automatically included from D&D Beyond. Automation features gets a 3, although it definitely doesn't have the same level of automation as some of the VTTs later in the video. The fact that it's all done for you is what earned it this score, especially the option to just copy and paste the stat block from anywhere, and with minimal reformatting, all the rolls and bonuses are captured automatically. For wow factor, I'm giving this a 2. I think my players would be wowed by the seamless integration of their character sheets and just how easy it is to use. There's no learning curve for them because they already use D&D Beyond, so everything's very familiar. If you play 5e and you're already invested in the D&D Beyond stuff like my group is, then I think this is the easiest option. And for how my group plays, it's a great fit. This will be one of the VTTs I'll be using going forward. That's right, I think my ideal setup involves multiple VTTs, but more on that in the conclusion section. If you're looking for a VTT where you can do automation that you didn't even know was possible, like having AC automatically considered, damage applied, and a specific sound effect played when the player attacks a monster, then Foundry VTT is worth exploring. This is probably the most recommended VTT on subreddits and forums, and for good reason. It's a one-time purchase of $50, and you host the world on your computer, so there's no subscription or hosting fees. The downside of this is part of the setup involves forwarding a port on your router, so your players can access your computer. It's well documented and pretty straightforward, but some ISPs don't allow this, and for some people, this will be too intimidating. But honestly, I think it's a great temperature check for the program. If the idea of forwarding a port on your router is intimidating, and you don't want to spend time tinkering and getting things set up, then probably skip this one. But if you enjoy tinkering with extensions and modules, and you're looking for an all-in-one VTT where you can do pretty much anything, then let's dive in. In my testing, I barely scratched the surface, but because it's one of the most popular VTTs, there are a ton of great videos out there. First thing I noticed, outside of the one-time purchase price, which was a breath of fresh air, was the excellent tutorials that were built right into the interface. They're available for the GM and for the players, and they teach you how to use the program while actually using it, which I think is the best method. Foundry VTT is designed to be a fully virtual tabletop where you can do anything you would do at a normal table, including managing character sheets, maps, combat, and monsters, but also theater of the mind images, soundscapes, and music. You can also keep track of lore, NPCs, and handouts that you can choose to share with your players or not. The real superpower of Foundry are the modules. These are extensions that can be loaded into Foundry. These can be entire game systems, adventures, compendiums of monsters, packs of maps, sounds of music, or even a whole 3D engine. Just like the old iPhone commercials, there's a module for that. If you play 5e, the only official content that's available is the SRD content, Tasha's, and Fendelver. Otherwise, you'll need to get third-party content or use an importer module to import your purchase content from D&D Beyond. If you play Pathfinder, then everything's available for free through the Pathfinder module, which was developed by the community in partnership with Paizo. You can also create your own monster and NPC stat blocks, but you have to create a whole character sheet, so it's not quite as easy as just copying and pasting. If you play a different system, then there's a pretty good chance someone has developed a Foundry module for it. The number of systems supported is truly staggering. Before we go any further, I guess I should go grab my token. There's no way it's just an empty room. You wouldn't do that. Whoa! We've moved on. What do you think of this one? Yeah, this feels good. And you don't even have to make your own sound effects anymore. The automation features are on another level. You can set up macros to do pretty much everything if you spend the time. There's also modules which have macros already created for you, like the module from today's sponsor, Describe. The Describe module is really cool. They've mapped their sound effects library to monsters in the SRD, so when they die, it automatically plays a death sound effect appropriate to that monster type. They've also mapped sound effects to every single SRD spell, so when your players cast a spell, it automatically plays the sound effect. This is really cool, and it definitely adds another level. You also have access to their music and ambience right from within the audio tab in Foundry. Just listen to this. It's so good. I've been using their new browser-based music and sound effects tool, Opus, in my weekly game to add some ambience and music, and I've been loving it. It's been really fun to build soundscapes and build playlists to set the tone. Within their Foundry module and within Opus, you can also access all of their description text to use as inspiration or read verbatim. When you combine it all together, it's such a powerful experience for your players. The laws of nature don't apply here in the shattered remnants of the old fort. Rocks float like passing clouds across the desolate sands, and plants grow 10 times their usual size amid the ruins, crumbling walls still marked by the last spells of the rebellion centuries ago. Most avoid this place entirely, believing it to be cursed, haunted, or both. But some, be they brave or foolish, are drawn to the decrepit arcane bastion, lured by the rumors of treasure within. And then you see it. Whatever twisted artisan envisioned this amalgamation of a demon must have felt particularly inspired. 3 legs with scabbed flesh as thick as tree trunks hold the monster steady as it surveys its surroundings, its head twisting completely backwards before swiveling back the other way. The elbow of one arm is bent the wrong way, the bone jutting out so far it's surprising it hasn't broken skin. The demon releases a roar of pent-up bloodlust, the sound coming out gnarled and grating from its raw throat. You can use the code PowerWordSpill at checkout to get an extended 30-day free trial. Head to the link down below to check it out. Alright, let's give Foundry some scores. Cost is a 3 for sure. A one-time $50 fee and no fee for your players. A lot of great modules are free, but some are paid, so depending on what you're looking to do, this could get more expensive. TTRPG support is also a 3. Through its modules, it supports most popular TTRPGs. Ease of setup and use is a 1. It has quite the learning curve for both the GM and the players, and forwarding the port on your router might be too much for some, but it's part of the trade-off for the number of features. It's a fairly easy setup for your players though, because they just connect through their browser. Asset availability is a 3. It comes with so many monster stat blocks and tokens for a variety of systems. Automation features is absolutely a 3. With macros and modules, the sky's the limit as far as what you can do. For a wow factor, I give this a 2. I know that adding stuff like spell sound effects would wow my players, but the 2D maps and tokens and Theater of the Mind images are all stuff they get with our current setup. Before we take a look at the most popular 2D VTT, let's take a quick jaunt into the realm of 3D. Our token has been a little flat, so let's help him out. Whoa, your performance has been flat. Hey, watch it, or I'll leave you 2D. No, please don't. Is VR the future of VTTs? Maybe, but not until headsets are comfortable enough to wear for multiple hours at a time, and affordable enough that everyone in your group has one. If everyone in your group does have a VR headset, then you should definitely consider this next one. Dungeon Full Dive is a 3D, VR-compatible VTT that is available on Windows. It's $50 for the Game Master version and free for your players. The unique features of Dungeon Full Dive are the first-person view and the VR support. Even if you don't play in VR, you can still use the mouse and keyboard to walk around in first-person view and explore the world. Although their Kickstarter was funded in 2021, it still feels like it's quite early in development. I think there's a lot of potential here, and I'm looking forward to keeping my eye on it. Currently, it only supports 5th edition, and the biggest pain point for me was the lack of assets. They have about 130 monster and animal tokens, but most of the SRD monsters aren't represented there. This extends to buildings and map assets as well. They have some pre-made maps, which are great for just jumping into, and they have a pre-made adventure as well. The character sheet is pretty limited, but improvements to that are on the roadmap, as well as a PDF importer and numerous other cool features. This is an immensely ambitious project, and I think it has massive potential, so I hope the team keeps working at it. That being said, I can't recommend Dungeon Full Dive in its current state, mainly due to asset availability. The number of buildings and other assets are just very limited, so you can only build specific styles. Here are my scores for Dungeon Full Dive. Personally, I'm not a fan of the more video game looking VTTs. I love video games and I love TTRPGs, but I don't want my TTRPGs to be more like a video game. For some reason, I find that as soon as there's character and monster animation, it hinders my imagination. It feels less like I'm playing with a toy miniature where my imagination can still take over, and more like I'm being told, this is exactly what it looks like. That might just be me though. But I know that some people do want something closer to a video game experience, so there are a few of these in this video, and I've tried to score them fairly. With that being said, let's take a look at the highest rated video game style VTT on Steam. The RPG engine has, at the time of making this video, 244 reviews with the very positive rating. It's available on both PC and Mac, although it wouldn't run on my MacBook M1 Air. It costs $39.99, but you have to buy the $19.99 DLC, so it really just costs $60 for the GM and free for the players. The RPG engine has gone for a low poly style, which I think has been helpful in allowing them to create assets quickly and easily, and also allows it to have lower performance requirements. There are over 7,000 assets, including assets for fantasy, modern, and sci-fi. But before we can explore more of this VTT, we're gonna need to make our character. Okay, that looks pretty good. Oh, no, we'll keep that on. The map maker is pretty quick and easy, and there's a lot of flexibility in what you can make, but performance really tanks on larger maps. They have integrated with Steam Workshop though, and there are lots of maps available there. The selection of assets for monsters and enemies is pretty good, but it's definitely limited to the most common monster types. The animations are cool though, and very smooth. You can even have certain enemies wander around and guard an area. Instead of building a character sheet into the VTT, they've built a character sheet builder, so you can build any type of character sheet. This means that you can play most TTRPGs in this VTT if you're willing to put some time in to build your own sheet. Alternatively, you can also download a pre-made character sheet made by the community, which is cool. Although, I think it might be a little too easy to accidentally make your sheet public, because the repository is filled with a ton of character sheets titled New Character Sheet, which is very funny to me. Although the player character sheet support is great, it doesn't come with any monster sheets, so other than tracking HP, there isn't a way for the GM to fully run combat inside the VTT, unless you manually create a sheet for every one of the monsters, which isn't practical. And then I said, breath weapon? More like morning breath weapon. Tough crowd. I found that the trailer on Steam is actually very representative of the experience, for once. So if this VTT looks interesting to you, definitely go watch the trailer and give it a try. Cost is a 2. The one-time fee is nice, but the mandatory DLC feels weird. It should just be one game with one price. TTRPG support is a 2. The character sheet builder is really cool and allows for lots of flexibility and support of other TTRPGs. I just wish there was more support for GMs and a tool for importing or easily creating monster stat blocks. Ease of setup and use is a 2. It's pretty quick to get up and running, but your players do need to install a program, and getting used to the character sheet would be a bit of a learning curve. Asset availability is a 3. There are tons of assets, with more being added all the time, and there are even more available on the Steam Workshop. Also, having assets for fantasy, modern, and sci-fi is great. Automation features is a 1. Currently, there isn't an easy way to run full combats, so you'll most likely be using an external combat tracker like Improved Initiative. Wow factor is a 3 for sure. The weather effects, monster animations, and possibilities for varied and detailed maps would definitely wow my players. Before I show you a free, browser-based 3D VTT, let's take a look at 2 well-known 2D VTTs and see how they stack up against what we've seen so far. Alright, my friend, time to go 2-dimensional again. Family. All that matters is family. I said 2-dimensional, not 1-dimensional. Roll20 is the current king of the hill when it comes to browser-based 2D VTTs. There's a free tier which is usable, but definitely limited, or their highest paid tier for $9.99 a month or $99 a year. Roll20 is really designed to be used with their marketplace. They have license agreements with pretty much all the main game publishers, so you can get adventures and mechanics for most systems. If you're going to invest in Roll20 and play pre-made adventures, then the integration is seamless. Most of the monsters and tokens for the adventures have pre-made macros, and the maps are already set up. If you're trying to run a homebrew campaign, the macros are very time consuming to set up compared to something like Foundry where it's just drag and drop. It's nice that it comes with the SRD monsters and tokens from a bunch of systems, and that all stats and abilities in the character sheets are automatically rollable, but if you want any pre-made macros, you need to purchase modules. For creating homebrew monsters, it's just your standard fillable form fields. Even with the full subscription, there isn't any sort of homebrew compendium to use across all of your games, so you have to use their transmogrify feature to import content from another game into your new game, which feels clunky, especially for a feature that's only available for $100 a year. The dynamic lighting and locked doors are cool, and although it was pretty big when it first came out, most major VTTs have this now. They've released a beta app for their Discord integration, and I tried it out as well. I'm not really sure what I was expecting, but it's just a browser window inside Discord. All the other UI and everything else looks the same. I'm sure that did take quite a bit of work, but in its current state, I didn't see any benefit to using that over just having a browser window next to your Discord call. Roll20 was launched in 2012, and it was the first VTT I ever used. But with the competition more fierce than ever, it feels like they haven't really been continuing to innovate as much as others have in the space. And for the price, it seems like a lot to ask. Cost is a 1. $99 a year seems steep compared to other options out there. TTRPG system support is a 3. The number of different TTRPGs that they fully support is incredible. Ease of setup and use is a 2. It's nice that no one has to install anything, but they do require all of your players to create an account. And if you're building your own macros, then it's pretty time consuming. Asset availability is a 3. 2D assets are easy to come by, and it comes with tokens and stat blocks for all the SRD monsters. If you want more, the marketplace has almost anything you could possibly want. Automation features are a 2. Although their macros can be used to automate a lot of character sheet options, it's not as seamless as other systems and requires you to write some script, which might be intimidating for some. Wow factor is a 1. This is just what happens when you're the king of the hill. You're the standard that everyone else gets compared to. If you're looking for a VTT that has licensing for almost as much content as Roll20, but isn't subscription-based, then this next one might be worth considering. Fantasy Grounds is the OG in the... Can I help you?
I'm just enjoying a nice refreshing drink from my Chill Touch cup that I got from powerwordspell.com. Also wearing my new corduroy hat.
It's Chill Touch, but it's also Chill Touch, and it's also an insulated tumbler, so it works on 3 levels. Really? You're gonna do an ad right in the middle of this helpful piece of information?
Well, you do it all the time.
Fair point. There's also a classic dad hat in the shop as well. Anyways, back to Fantasy Grounds. Initially being released in 2004, it went through a rebuild in 2020, and now it's built in Unity. Fantasy Grounds is often compared to Roll20 and Foundry VTT, and for good reason, as it combines major elements of both. The program itself is a one-time fee of $50 or $9.99 a month for a subscription that doesn't accrue towards the one-time license, so I'm not sure why you'd opt for that. I would just use a free VTT for 5 months and then save up for the one-time fee. Fantasy Grounds has the automation features and complexity of Foundry and the marketplace support of Roll20. The Fantasy Grounds store is packed full of books from a wide variety of game systems. If you purchase any of these books, they come with all the monsters and NPCs with automation fully done for you. All of these features are cool, but the best thing might be how satisfying these dice are to fling around.
Whoa! Whoa. Hey, watch it!
I think I spent at least 10 minutes just flinging dice around when I first opened up the program. This all sounds great, right? Slam dunk, no contest. Well, it's not all great. The biggest weakness is definitely the UI. I can't describe it other than that it's just not very intuitive for me. And the number of windows that need to pop up to do basic things is intimidating for some reason. One of Foundry VTT's greatest strengths is not only the UI design, but also the built-in tutorial that walks you through how to use it.
Fantasy Grounds has 2 quick start tutorials, but together they're almost an hour long.
Once you and your players are familiar with it though, it's extremely powerful. Aside from the extensive support for official content for a number of games, another major win for it over Foundry is the native support for a lot of functionality. Foundry VTT relies on modules written by community members to add a lot of functionality. This means that modules may not be updated and might break when new versions of Foundry come out, either forcing you to use an older version or spend time looking for new modules. Fantasy Grounds, on the other hand, has most of its functionality built into its core, and from the community posts I've read, it seems like they're very cognizant of making things backwards compatible. Almost too much so, because I think that their commitment to backwards compatibility might be preventing them from being able to drastically update the UI. Another win for Fantasy Grounds is that although the game is hosted on your computer, the connection to your players is handled through their servers, so no need for port forwarding. They even put a cheeky little dig at Foundry about it on their website. Fantasy Grounds also does have their own version of extensions in what they call the Fantasy Grounds Forge. There aren't as many as with Foundry VTT, but they seem to be better supported through updates. So if you're looking to invest in official content, Fantasy Grounds supports the system you play, the players in your group aren't intimidated by learning a new program, you're willing to invest some time up front to learn how things work, and you're looking for the highest level of automation you can achieve, then I think Fantasy Grounds is the best choice for you. Being able to purchase a module and then have all the stat blocks fully automated is so nice. I really wish they would add a tutorial with helper text when you first open the program, similar to Foundry's. I think that would help a lot. Alright, let's do some scores. Cost is a 3. $50 for the one-time license is great, and you can usually find official content on sale or in bundles in their store. TTRPG support is also a 3. I'm really impressed with how many publishers they are able to get licenses with. Ease of use and setup is a 1. Asset availability is a 3. You can bring in your own 2D assets or get content through the store, and it also comes preloaded with all the SRD content. Automation features are a 3 for sure. Wow factor is a 0. This would be a really tough first impression for my group. I definitely struggled with the program initially, and I know most of the people in my group wouldn't want to invest the time to learn how to use it. Before we look at what I think is the best video game style 3D VTT and a new browser-based VTT that's looking to take on Roll20, we're going to look at a few VTTs that simulate the tabletop experience in 3D rather than trying to recreate a video game experience. Starting with this free browser-based 3D VTT. Tabula Sono is another gem that I'd never heard of. It's free with some limitations or $9 a month on their Patreon. Tabula Sono is trying to replicate the feeling of playing with unpainted minis on a 2D map, and it does this extremely well. There are a ton of minis and objects included for free, all in a solid color. I have a feeling this is both for performance reasons and for asset availability reasons. You can use it completely for free without any limitations if you just want to put down walls and use their included minis. In the free tier, you also get 3 upload slots that you can use to upload either a map or a 3D file. Tabula Sono can import basically any type of 3D file, which means you can get models from 3D printing sites or export them from pretty much any 3D software. You can add any 2D image file to use as a map and then draw walls on top of it if you want. There isn't any automation features and you can't track stat blocks or character sheets. It's just meant as a tabletop where you can throw down a map and some minis. Overall, I was really surprised and impressed by how smooth and responsive it was. Moving pieces around, adding a map, drawing walls, everything was just really quick and easy. If you want to dip your toes into 3D but don't want to spend any time setting it up, this is the tool for you. They're also coming out with a desktop app. It's listed on Steam as coming soon, but unless it has a lot more features, I'd just stick with the web app because it was a great experience. I did have one glitch where I deleted my uploads, but I didn't get my slots back. Other than that, it was an extremely easy and smooth experience. Cost is a 3. Although there's a paid tier which would get expensive, the free version comes with so many models that I feel like you could happily just use that by switching out your uploaded maps. TTRPG support is a 1. It doesn't try to support any systems, but also kind of supports every system because it's just tokens on a map. Ease of setup and use is a 3. Other than creating an account, it was very easy, and the process to join a game was very quick. Asset availability is a 3. It comes with so many models, and the options for importing are extremely flexible. Automation features is a 0 because there aren't any. Wow factor, I gave this a 3. There was something about it that just looked so good. It was just gray minis on a map, but for some reason it made me excited to play. And I think my players would feel the same. Talespire has become the new standard for 3D VTTs. Regardless of your opinions of it, you've probably heard of it, and its popularity is undeniable. At the time of making this video, it has over 3,400 reviews with the very positive rating. The full program is $25, and they recently released a seats system so you can purchase guest seats to use. Seats are $15 each or $50 for 4. I think this is a great system, and it significantly reduces the cost to get your whole group playing. The seats stay with your full game copy, and you can use them with as many different groups or people as you want. You just can't be using the same seat simultaneously. My group has 6 players, so the total cost for us was $105. But to put that into perspective, Roll20 is $100 every single year. Because Talespire doesn't have any stat block or character sheet integration, you actually don't even need to get seats for your players. You can just screen share and move the minis around. The only thing they're missing out on is zooming around the map on their own or rolling 3D dice. There also isn't any DLC or extra content. All updates and additional content is free, and there's a lot of it. They seem to release a new content pack every couple of months. They have assets for fantasy, sci-fi, and modern.
Hey, bet you can't do this. Didn't think so.
One of the best features of Talespire is their community-built maps integration. There are 2 main websites, Tales Bazaar and Tales Tavern, where members of the community post maps and boards for free. To bring them into Talespire, all you have to do is click the link and it'll open in Talespire and automatically add it to your game. From there, you can play the maps exactly as they are or tweak them to make them your own. Talespire is designed to replicate the feeling of playing with physical terrain, and I think they nailed it. I don't really know why, but I just find it really fun to build with the tiles, and it feels easy to make something quick that also looks great. But how does it score? Cost is a 1. It's definitely on the more expensive end, unless you just split one copy with your group and screen share. TTRPG support is a 1 because it doesn't really support any, but also supports all of them because it's, again, just tokens on a map. They also do have some basic trackers for things like HP, but it's extremely basic. Ease of setup and use is a 2. It requires everyone to install something, and it does have a small learning curve to build maps. Asset availability is a 3. There are so many assets on there, and they're always releasing more at no extra cost. Automation features is a 1. It just has basic trackers. Wow factor is a 3. I've been using Talespire with my group, and the first time we opened it up, I think every single one of them said, wow, this is so cool. Before we look at my favorite of the video game style VTTs, there are 2 more tabletop type 3D VTTs we need to look at. The first is one that is often recommended in the same threads as Talespire, Tabletop Simulator. Tabletop Simulator is a generic physics simulator meant to simulate board games. It's $19.99, but everyone has to have a copy to play together. Natively, Tabletop Simulator doesn't support any TTRPGs, but you can build things inside it that let you play them. There's also a Steam workshop that has a lot of community-built assets. The top comment from the creator of the most popular 5e pack on the Steam workshop says, "I moved to Talespire a long time ago, it's a much less buggy system," which I think kind of sums up the experience. Tabletop Simulator is super cool for playing board games and doing all kinds of stuff, but with all the purpose-built TTRPG VTTs these days, there are better options. Here are the scores for Tabletop Simulator. Conclave VTT is another newcomer just released in December 2023. Similar to Tabula Sono, it's trying to replicate the experience of using 3D tokens on a 2D map. It's a one-time $19.99 fee, and then your players join through Steam SharePlay. Although I think if I were to use this, I'd just share my screen through Discord instead. Having multiple people try to control one camera becomes chaotic very quickly. The atmospheric and lighting effects look really nice, and the included tokens are cool, but there aren't any monster tokens, only player tokens. For monsters, you'll need to import your own, use generic tokens, or use images and standees. At the moment though, you can only import Unity files, but it's on the roadmap that the dev wants to add support for importing other file types, which I think would be a huge improvement. There are some simple trackers for HP, but the developer said they aren't planning to support character sheets or stat blocks, just tokens and maps. Overall, Conclave doesn't try to do too much. It's just a way to show tokens on a 2D map, and it looks really nice while doing it. I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops, because if it had a similar number of included tokens as Tabula Sono, it would be a great option. Here are the scores for Conclave. Now for my favorite of the video game style VTTs. RPG Stories is available on Windows. It was released in late 2023 and it's still very early in the development, but I think it's already looking promising. The GM version is $35.98 and the player version is $18.99, which does make it the most expensive option on the list, even more than Talespire or Tabletop Simulator. Of all of the video game style VTTs, this one has the best map editor. Because of the easy wall tool and the mass placement tool for scattering things like trees and rocks, it felt really easy to throw down a map quickly. They have assets for fantasy, modern, and sci-fi, and even demo maps for all 3 styles right from the home screen. So, you guys come here often, or? I think the assets and maps you can create look great, especially once you turn on the weather effects. At the moment, there isn't any character sheet or stat block integration, just some 3D dice. It was a stretch goal of their recently funded expansion Kickstarter, but it didn't get unlocked, so it looks like character sheet support will not be coming yet. They have promised a lot in this expansion though, including procedural generation similar to Dungeon Alchemist, and they're also integrating with Kitbash, a company that makes 3D models for video games, to massively improve their asset availability. Of course, this expansion will cost extra, which will drive up the total cost even more. Cost for RPG Stories is a 1. By far the most expensive option, even if you only buy one copy and screen share. But because you can build interactive elements onto your maps, it's really designed for everyone to have a copy. TTRPG support is a 1. At this point, it's just a map maker where you can play multiplayer. Ease of setup and use is a 2, because everyone has to install the software. But getting up and running was really quick and easy. Asset availability right now is a 2, but once they integrate with Kitbash, that'll be a 3 for sure. Automation features are a 0 because there aren't any at the moment. And wow factor is a 3. I think it looks great, and I think building a map where my players could interact with stuff like opening doors would wow them for sure. Based on my own rubric, this shouldn't be my favorite of the video game style VTTs, but I think it was heavily influenced by how easy the map maker was to use, the look of it, and the promises made in their expansion Kickstarter. And I know that's a dangerous trap, to invest in software based on future promises, but integrating with Kitbash seems like a very attainable goal, and the number of assets they offer for a huge range of settings is very impressive. This will heavily depend on pricing though, and if the already high price of this VTT skyrockets because you have to buy tons of DLC content packs, then this will quickly drop to the bottom of my list. Before we take a look at a VTT that seems to be positioning itself to take on Roll20, let's check in with what has been my favorite VTT up to this point and see how it stacks up. Owlbear Rodeo has been my go-to VTT for throwing down a map and some tokens since I discovered it a few years ago. And with the launch of V2 last year, it's gotten even better. Owlbear Rodeo is a browser-based VTT with a fully featured free tier and a paid tier if you need more than 200 megabytes of storage on their servers. They have a couple of paid tiers, with the highest being $7.99 a month or $80 a year if you need 10 gigabytes of storage and up to 25 rooms. Only the GM needs to make an account, everyone else can just jump straight in. It comes with a few generic pre-made tokens, or you can upload your own. When V2 launched, they added an extension feature, so now other people can write extensions for the platform. After a year, I'm surprised that there aren't more, but the ones that are there do add some great functionality, like an initiative tracker and dynamic lighting. The functionality of Owlbear Rodeo is pretty bare bones, but it's really meant to be a quick way to throw down tokens on a map, measure distances, display spell effects, and roll dice. I still really like it because the interface is clean and easy to use, and they allow uploading of maps to their server in the free tier. For any non-D&D systems that we play, I think I'll still use it for quick encounters. Cost is a 3 because the free tier is fully featured and 200 megabytes of storage is very generous and I've never run out of room. TTRPG support is a 2. There are some generic character sheet extensions and then some specific ones for a few systems as well. There are basic trackers for monsters but no stat block support. Ease of setup and use is a 3. Only the GM needs to make an account, so it's really quick to throw down a map and send the share link. The UI also feels very simple and intuitive. Asset availability is a 2. It comes with some default tokens and 2D assets are really easy to import and organize in their asset panel. Automation features is a 1 because there are just basic HP trackers. Wow factor is also a 1 because it's all pretty standard stuff, it just works really well. Before we get into my overall thoughts and what I'm going to use going forward, we're going to take a look at a VTT that has marketplace integration similar to Roll20, but with an updated UI and a focus on theater of the mind gameplay as well as tactical combat. Alchemy RPG is trying to be a one-stop VTT where you can do world building, run theater of the mind scenes with visual aids, and tactical battles, with built-in support for those that want to broadcast their games. There's a free tier that allows you to create a limited number of games, scenes, and homebrew worlds, and there's a paid tier that allows for unlimited everything for $8 a month or $88 a year. Alchemy RPG will be officially launching their V1 very soon, but you can access the platform already. Right from V1 launch, they'll support quite a large number of TTRPGs, and they have most of the bigger publishers in their marketplace already. Although I experienced a few small glitches, the platform is very polished. It was very easy to create different scenes, either for theater of the mind or for combat. You can add a background image or video, choose a particle effect, and even add looping ambience and music. For tactical scenes, it was easy to add a map, get everything lined up, and add tokens. Your players can add character sheets with rollable stats and actions, or they can also import their character sheets from D&D Beyond. You can add monsters from purchased content with pre-mapped stat blocks, or you can add your own monsters. The process for creating your own monsters and manually creating actions isn't as easy as some of the other platforms, so it feels like they want to encourage you to purchase pre-made content. Which brings me to the marketplace. It's very clear that Alchemy has made publisher partnerships a priority right from the beginning. They have content for a large number of systems from most of the main publishers, as well as some indie creators. They also have map packs and other visual items in the marketplace. The world building features inside Alchemy are more robust than I've seen in a lot of other VTTs. The lore is broken out into different categories, and you can add tags to the different articles to make them searchable later. You can access this from the separate world building area and from within the VTT. I do wish the GM could make the notes panel bigger because it feels like the space given to the visuals are a bit of a waste for the GM. Overall, I think this is one of the better world building and lore tracking implementations, but for me it's still nowhere near a dedicated note-taking app like Obsidian. I think the biggest improvement would be if they could add inline linking. One unique feature that will have limited draw but is still interesting is their feature that allows you to broadcast games and follow along and watch other people play. This is a really interesting view because you get to essentially sit at someone else's table and see exactly what the players of that game see. I'm very curious to see if larger creators will start using this. Overall, Alchemy is a really interesting option. The integrated marketplace is already large and will only continue to grow. The focus on theater of the mind visual aids and integrating more robust world building tools makes it stand out. So, how does it score? Cost is a 2. Although the subscription fee is high compared to the one-time purchase options, their free tier seems completely usable, and if you're just running a home game, you probably don't need multiple homebrew universes. They don't paywall any features outright, just limits on how many of each thing you can create. TTRPG support is a 3. It's quite impressive how many different TTRPGs they support already, and their V1 hasn't even launched. Ease of setup and use is a 2. It's all browser-based, so you don't have to install anything, but your players are required to make an account. On the GM side, it felt pretty intuitive and easy to get up and running. Asset availability is a 3. They have a ton in their marketplace, and it comes with all the SRD monsters pre-mapped with actions and tokens. Automation features is a 2. The character sheet and monster stat block automation is great, and if you buy all your assets, then it's all done for you. Where it fell a little short was creating homebrew stuff. The process for creating attack automations was quite time-consuming. Wow factor is a 2. I think all the particle effects and the ability to upload videos and animations as visual references elevates this beyond a standard 2D VTT experience. So, after all that, what am I going to be using going forward? I only use a VTT for combat, and really only for more important combats. If my players get into a random scuffle with some low-level NPCs or monsters, we'll just use Theater of the Mind. I don't use maps for exploration, or dungeon crawling, or puzzles. I find it takes me far too long to prep that many maps, which makes the game suffer because I spend less time prepping the more important things. That being said, I do like to use maps for more tactical combats, and especially for bigger boss fights because I want them to be a bit more of a spectacle. My group purchased quite a lot of content on D&D Beyond a number of years ago, so above VTT makes the most sense for us while we're playing D&D. For smaller combats and other minor encounters, that's what I'll be using from now on. For larger boss fights, I'm going to use Talespire. I can't exactly describe why, but I just find building with the tiles really fun. When I showed it to my players, it got them really excited. Anything I can do to make playing online a little more magical is really worth it for me. After doing all this research though, I will be spending some more time exploring Foundry. If you play Pathfinder, it seems like this is a no-brainer. Once we start playing some other systems, I think I'll be exploring their Foundry integrations. I'll also be keeping my eye on Alchemy. I recently backed the DC20 Kickstarter and they just announced their VTT integrations, so I'll probably try it out on Alchemy and Foundry and see what I like better. It seems like every time I do some research, there are more VTTs popping up, so I'm looking forward to seeing how these continue to develop. You can check out the full scores for all the VTTs in a free post on my Patreon. There's also a bunch of cool stuff at the $5 tier, like magic items that level up and store discounts. For now, I'll still be using OBS to show stuff to my players through the virtual webcam, and Obsidian to build my worlds and track my notes. If you want to learn about either of those, you can check them out here. I appreciate you.